The great station hung in the void like a jewel crafted from light and metal. Concordia Prime had been a witness to 10 years of galactic history. It had seen wars end and peace begin. It had watched civilizations rise and fall. But today, it was destined to see something that would change everything. Thomas Chen stood in the center of the hall. His hands were bound by energy shackles that emitted a soft blue glow. He was 43 years old, and gray was already streaking his black hair. His engineering uniform was torn and stained. He had not been allowed to change since his arrest 3 weeks prior. Around him, the hall rose in tiers, and on those tiers sat representatives of 1,000 worlds. But only 5 beings truly mattered here. They sat at the highest point of the hall, looking down upon everyone else. This was the Council of Elders. These 5 species had ruled the galaxy longer than humanity had existed. They were ancient, they were powerful, and they believed they were wise. The representative of the Zelnari spoke first. Her name was unpronounceable to humans, so they called her Elder Silver. She was tall and slender, and her skin shimmered with colors like an oil slick on water. She had no pupils, only deep black pools for eyes. When she spoke, her voice resonated from everywhere at once. "Thomas Chen of Earth," she said, "you are accused of the most heinous crime under galactic law. You destroyed a sacred site. The Temple of First Light on Kepler 442b had stood for 700 years. It was erected by my ancestors when your kind still lived in caves, and you destroyed it in seconds." Thomas Chen did not lower his eyes. He looked directly at Elder Silver. His voice sounded firm. "I destroyed it to save my crew," he said. "Radiation from a solar flare would have killed all 47 people on my ship. The temple was built over the only underground cavern that could provide shelter. I requested permission. I waited as long as I could, but you were 3 days away from responding, and my people were dying. So, yes, I used mining charges to breach the floor of the temple and save my crew." A hum, like thunder, rippled through the hall. Representatives of hundreds of worlds began shouting protests. Some were furious, others seemed confused. Elder Silver raised a long hand, and immediate silence fell. "You requested permission," she said. "And when you did not receive it fast enough, you simply did what you wanted. That is why humans are dangerous. You are impatient. You are destructive. You think only of yourselves." The human ambassador rose from her seat. Her name was Maria Santos, and she had fought for Thomas Chen for the last 3 weeks. She was a short woman with dark skin and a resolute gaze. She had barely slept since the trial began. "Elder Silver," Maria said, "please, we understand that the temple was important. We are prepared to restore it. We will pay any price you name. We will accept any punishment you deem fair." But Thomas Chen saved 47 lives. He made an impossible choice in an impossible situation. "Does that mean nothing?" Another council member leaned forward. He was called Elder Stone. He belonged to a species similar to Living Stone, massive and ancient. As he spoke, dust fell from his lips. "It means nothing. Laws exist for a reason. If we make an exception every time someone has an excuse, we will have no laws left. We will have chaos." And it was chaos that killed billions in the Dark Ages before the Council restored order. The third representative emitted a sound like wind in dry trees. Humans called her Elder Whisper. She was from a species that partially existed in another dimension and looked like a vague contour of light. "The human species has been among the stars for only 50 of your years," Elder Whisper said. "During that time, you have started 12 conflicts with other species. You have broken trade agreements 43 times. You have shown disregard for quarantine zones, conservation laws, and cultural protection protocols. You ask us to make an exception, but we have already made too many exceptions for your kind." Maria Santos's heart sank. She knew where this was going, but hearing it was still painful. She looked at Thomas Chen, and he gave her a faint nod. He understood it too. The fourth council member spoke now, Elder Deep, from an aquatic species. His voice bubbled and gurgled, translated by machines. "We have discussed this for 3 weeks," Elder Deep said. "We have listened to all the arguments. We have considered all the factors, but we must think of the galaxy. If we show leniency to humans now, what signal does it send? That humans are special? That humans are allowed to break our laws whenever they wish? No, we must be firm. We must show that the law is equal for all species." The fifth and final council member had remained silent until now. People called him Elder Flame. He was from a species that looked like flame, though in reality he was composed of plasma held together by magnetic fields. When he spoke, his voice crackled. "Thomas Chen," Elder Flame said, "do you understand what you have done? Do you realize the scale of your crime?" Thomas Chen was silent for a moment. Then he spoke, and his voice carried across the entire hall. "I understand that I destroyed something your people valued," he said. "I understand that I broke your law, but I also understand that I saved 47 people who would have died a horrible death from radiation sickness. So, yes, I understand what I did, and I would do it again." The hall erupted in shouts. Species from across the galaxy were now shouting, some in rage, some in shock. How dared this human show no remorse? How dared he suggest he would break the law again? Elder Silver raised her hand again. Silence fell. "Like a blade," she said. "Then we have no choice. The Council of Elders finds Thomas Chen guilty of violating sacred conservation laws. The sentence is death. The execution will be carried out immediately and broadcast to all civilized worlds. Let this be a lesson to humanity and to all species. The law is absolute." Maria Santos screamed. She tried to rush forward, but the guards restrained her. Other human representatives in the hall shouted, pleading for mercy, but the council members were already standing, already leaving. The decision was final. Thomas Chen stood calmly. He looked up to where the council sat. Then he swept his gaze across everyone gathered to watch his execution. When he spoke, his voice was amplified so that everyone could hear. "My name is Thomas Chen," he said. "I am a human. I am an engineer. I am the father of 2 daughters back on Earth. I am the husband of a wife I love more than life. And I am dying now because I chose to save my crew instead of letting them die to protect an empty building." He paused. The entire hall went quiet. "I came to the stars with hope," Thomas Chen continued. "I believed we would find friends here. I believed we would find species that value life as much as we do. I believed we would find wisdom and kindness among the ancient races." He looked directly at where the council sat. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "You value your rules more than life. You value your buildings more than people. You value your pride more than justice. And now you will kill me to prove you are right." The guards approached him. Weapons were already charging. "But here is what you need to understand," Thomas Chen said. And now his voice was as firm as steel. "You think you are teaching a lesson to humanity. You think you are showing us our place in your galactic order. You think that killing one man will make the rest of us obedient?" He smiled. But there was no humor in that smile. "You have no idea what you have just done." Thomas Chen said, "We came to you in peace. We sought friendship and understanding. We tried to follow your rules even when they seemed meaningless to us. We accepted your judgment even when it was harsh. We hoped that in time you would see us as equals." Guards grabbed his arms. They led him to the execution platform. "But you have shown us the truth," Thomas Chen shouted as they led him away. "The galaxy does not respect peace. It does not respect hope. It does not respect anything but strength. Well then, you will soon find out what happens when you push humans too far. You will soon find out what we are truly capable of when you take our hope away." His voice echoed through the hall as they forced him onto the platform. "My death will not be the lesson you expect," Thomas Chen said. "It will be the beginning of something you cannot even imagine. You think you rule the galaxy. You think your 10,000 years of history make you untouchable? But history is written by the survivors, and you have just ensured that humans will survive at any cost." Elder Silver's voice cut through the space. "Execute him." An energy beam struck instantly. Thomas Chen did not scream. He simply ceased to exist. His body turned to light and ash in a fraction of a second. The hall plunged into silence. Maria Santos fell to her knees. Tears flowed down her face. Around her, other human representatives stood in shock. This could not be happening. This could not be true, but it was. The broadcast spread across the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, billions of screens showed the execution of Thomas Chen. The council wanted everyone to see. They wanted everyone to understand. Break our laws, and this is what happens. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter why you did it. The law is absolute. Back on Earth, in a small house in California, a woman named Lisa Chen watched her husband die on the screen. Her 2 daughters were crying beside her. The eldest, Jennifer, was 15. The youngest, Sarah, was 12. They had said goodbye to their father 3 months ago when he set off on a colonial mission. They had expected him back in 2 years. They would never see him again. Lisa Chen sat motionless. She did not cry. She was beyond tears. She stared at the screen with eyes that saw nothing. Her mind could not comprehend what had just happened. The galaxy had killed her husband for saving people. The council had executed him for being a good man. Did something inside Lisa Chen break at that moment? Something inside millions of people broke at the exact same instant. All over Earth and its colonies, people watched. They saw the death of Thomas Chen. They heard his last words and they understood. The galaxy had made its choice. The council had shown what it truly valued, and humanity would never forget. In government buildings on Earth, emergency meetings began. Military commanders were called into service. Scientists were pulled from their beds. Engineers were gathered at secret facilities on the moon. In a bunker that few knew about, in the command center, sat a man. His name was General Marcus Wells, and he was responsible for Earth's defense forces. He had been a soldier for 40 years. He had been through 3 wars. He thought he had seen it all. He was wrong. General Wells watched the recording of the execution 3 times. Then he picked up a secure telephone handset and made a call. "This is Wells," he said. "Execute Protocol Omega. Code Red. Dawn of Heavens. Everyone to their posts. Everything we have, everything we can build. I don't care how much it costs. I don't care how long it takes. The Council has just made the biggest mistake in galactic history, and we will ensure they understand exactly what that mistake was." He hung up the phone, then leaned back in his chair and stared at the screen where Thomas Chen had died. "They wanted to teach us a lesson," General Wells said quietly in the empty room. "Well then, class has started, and humanity learns very quickly. Throughout human space, the military machine began to turn. At first, quietly, secretly, but relentlessly. The Council had executed one man to prove they were right. They were about to learn that humans had their own truth, too. And when humans want to prove something, they don't use words. They use fire. The trial had ended. The execution had been completed. Justice, as the Council believed, had prevailed. They had no idea that justice was just beginning. 3 months had passed since the execution. 3 months since Thomas Chen had been turned to ash in the face of the entire galaxy. 3 months since humanity watched one of their own perish for saving lives. And during those 3 months, something strange happened. Earth went silent. On Concordia Prime, Elder Silver stood in her private quarters, reviewing reports that made no sense. The Zelnari did not feel fear the way humans did, but what she felt now was very close to it. What was wrong? Very wrong. "They have recalled all ambassadors," her aide said. The aide was young. He was only 300 years old. Every human diplomat from every council world had returned to Earth. They gave no explanation, they simply left. Elder Silver's colors shifted to dark purple, a sign of anxiety for her people. "What about trade?" she asked. "Completely halted," the aide replied. All human trade vessels had returned to their own space. All trade agreements had been quietly terminated. They were not renewing contracts. They were not negotiating new ones. They simply left. Elder Silver walked to the window of her quarters. Outside, the universe stretched endlessly, filled with stars, ships, and the movement of 1,000 civilizations. But somewhere out there, in a small corner of the galaxy, humanity was doing something. "And communications?" Elder Silver asked. The aide hesitated. "That is the strangest part," he said. "Human colonies are still communicating with each other. We can detect their signals, but they have ceased any outgoing communication with non-human species. Every message we send remains unanswered. Every attempt to reach them is ignored, as if we no longer exist to them." Elder Silver remained silent for a long time. "They are angry," she said finally. "They will calm down. Give them time." But even as she said it, she was not sure she believed her own words. On the other end of the galaxy, Elder Stone had similar concerns. He sat in a hall carved from a single giant crystal, surrounded by his advisors. They were discussing the human problem. "Our intelligence says they are building something," one advisor said. "Energy signatures in the SOL system have increased by 300%. Industrial production is at levels that should be impossible for a species of their age." "Building what?" Elder Stone rumbled. "We do not know," the advisor admitted. "They have completely closed their borders. Any ship that enters human space without permission receives one warning, then is destroyed if it does not leave immediately. We have lost 3 reconnaissance drones in the last week." Elder Stone clenched his stone fists, making a sound like boulders grinding together. "They cannot threaten the Council," he said. "We have been a power in this galaxy for 10,000 years. They have been in space for only 50. These are children having a tantrum. But another advisor spoke up. His tone was full of uncertainty. Elder Stone, perhaps we should acknowledge that we were too harsh. The human did, in fact, save his crew. Perhaps an apology? No, Elder Stone said. His voice was as final as a mountain. We do not apologize for upholding the law. Humans will take their place, or they will learn to fear us. Send an official request demanding an explanation for their recent behavior. If they do not respond within a week, we will treat it as an act of disrespect. The message was sent. There was no response. Elder Whisper floated in her meditation chamber, existing partially in this dimension and partially in another. She could see things that were unavailable to others. She felt patterns in the universe invisible to most. And right now, those patterns filled her with terror. Something was coming. She felt it the way a human feels, the approach of a storm. The fabric of space around human territory was changing, warping, twisting under the influence of something powerful. She called an emergency meeting of the council. The 5 council members met in a protected virtual space. Their consciousnesses were linked across the galaxy. This was how they usually discussed sensitive matters. I feel danger, Elder Whisper said without preamble. Humans are doing something that will change everything. We must act now, before it is too late. Act how? Elder Deep asked. His voice bubbled. We tried to contact them. They are ignoring us. We cannot force them to communicate. We could send ships, Elder Flame suggested. His plasma body crackled, a show of force. Remind them who holds power in this galaxy. No, Elder Silver said quickly. That would be a mistake. If we send warships into human space, it will be an act of war. And regardless of anything else, we do not want war. Why not? Elder Stone asked. If they threaten us, we will crush them. It is simple. Elder Whisper's form flickered. Because I have been studying human history, she said quietly. I have read everything we have on them, and I learned something disturbing. Humans do not think like us. When we face a threat, we calculate the risks and benefits. We act rationally. But humans, when humans are backed into a corner, when they feel they have nothing to lose, they do not calculate. They simply fight. And they do not stop fighting until they win, or until she cleared her throat, they perish. Primitive, Elder Stone snorted. Perhaps, Elder Whisper agreed, but effective. In their short history, humans have fought hundreds of wars. They have almost destroyed themselves several times, but they have always survived. And every time they fight, they learn, they adapt, they improve. They do not have a fleet capable of challenging us, Elder Flame said. Our ships are thousands of years ahead of theirs. That was true 3 months ago, Elder Whisper said. But what about now? What have they been building in their silence? What have they learned? The council was silent. Finally, Elder Deep spoke. Maybe we should send a probe, he suggested. Just for observation. We do not need to enter their space. We can observe from the border, see what they are doing. The others agreed. It seemed reasonable. It seemed safe. They sent a Zelnari probe to the edge of human space. It was a sophisticated machine, nearly invisible, designed to observe without being detected. It cost more than most small ships. It lasted 17 seconds. The probe entered the border region of human space and immediately began scanning. It detected massive energy signatures, shipyards working at incredible speed, something that looked like a fleet in the stage of construction. But the numbers were wrong. There were too many ships. Too many. The probe sent the data to the Zelnari home world. Then it died. There was no warning, no message, no threat. One moment the probe existed, and the next it turned into scrap metal, torn apart by a weapon that locked onto it the second it entered the scanning zone. Elder Silver reviewed the data that the probe had managed to send before its destruction. What she saw caused her colors to shift to the white equivalent of shock for the Zelnari. This is impossible, she said to herself. This could not be true, but it was. In the 3 months since the execution of Thomas Chen, humanity had not been idle. They did not mourn. They worked. On Earth, General Marcus Wells stood in the command center that had been built in secret over the last decades. It was deep underground, protected by miles of rock and advanced shields. In this room, the future of humanity was being planned. Status report, Wells said. A young officer stood up and read from a tablet. All shipyards are operating at maximum capacity, sir. We have completed the first wave of the fleet, 12 ships of a new design. The second wave is 60% ready. That will add another 200. Wells nodded. Before the execution of Thomas Chen, The entire Earth military fleet numbered perhaps 200 ships. They were created for reconnaissance and defense. They were built with hope. These new ships were different. They were built with purpose. "What about weapons systems?" Wells asked. Another officer replied, "Quantum disintegrators are installed on all frontline vessels, sir. Tests show they can penetrate Zelnari shields as if they weren't there at all. The AIs are working and learning fast. Each ship is smarter than the entire Council fleet put together." "Good," Wells said. "And the special projects?" A scientist stood up. She looked tired. She had been working 20 hours a day for the last 3 months. "Project Dawn is ready, sir," she said. "We have successfully turned stellar manipulation technology into a weapon. We can cause solar flares, increase solar radiation, or if necessary, we can force stars to go supernova." The room went silent for a moment. "And the ethical review?" Wells asked quietly. "Passed, sir," the scientist said, "with the understanding that this weapon would only be used in uninhabited systems or as an absolute last resort." "We are not monsters." "No," Wells agreed, "we are not. But the Council must learn that we are not victims either." He turned to the room. 3 months ago, they killed Thomas Chen," Wells said. "They killed him for being a good man, for saving lives. They killed him and broadcast it to the entire galaxy as a warning to us. They wanted to put us in our place." He paused. "Well, they have taught us a lesson," Wells continued. "They taught us that peace is an option only when both sides want it. They taught us that the galaxy respects strength, not kindness. They taught us that if we want to survive here, we cannot rely on anyone but ourselves." Every person in the room listened carefully. "In a week, we move," Wells said. "We will strike them everywhere at once. Every military installation of the Council, every shipyard, every defensive platform. We will show them what happens when you execute a man for doing the right thing." "Sir," an officer cautioned, "what about civilian casualties?" Wells's face hardened. "We avoid them at all costs," he said firmly. "We are not like them. We do not punish the innocent for the crimes of their leaders. Each target has been carefully selected to minimize collateral damage. Our weapons are precise. Our intelligence is good. We will strike their military forces, their government, their ability to impose their will on the galaxy. But we will not become killers." He looked around the room. "We are going to war," Wells said. "But we will be the good guys in this war. We will be the ones fighting for justice. For Thomas Chen, for every human who has been oppressed by the Council's rules, for every species that has suffered under their so-called order." Another officer raised a hand. "Sir, and what happens then? Even if we win, what next?" Wells smiled grimly. "Then we ensure it never happens again," he said. "We will dismantle their council. We will build something better, something fair, something where no one is executed for saving lives." The room exploded in nodding and quiet agreement. Outside Earth, in the darkness of space, thousands of ships gathered. They were painted black, almost invisible against the backdrop of stars. They carried weapons the Council had never seen. They were operated by people who had seen the death of Thomas Chen and decided they had had enough. On Mars, entire factories were converted to military production. On the Moon, training bases operated day and night. In the asteroid belt, miners became weapon manufacturers. Humanity had been silent for 3 months, but it had not been idle. Back on Concordia Prime, Elder Silver stood before the other council members. They had finally agreed to meet in person to discuss the human problem. "I propose sending a diplomatic mission," Elder Silver said. "We will tell them we understand they are upset. We will offer to discuss the issue. We will find a peaceful solution." "No," Elder Stone cut in. "That would be a sign of weakness. Humans," he cleared his throat, "must understand that the Council does not negotiate under pressure." "What pressure?" Elder Deep asked. "They have been silent. They have not threatened us. They simply withdrew from galactic affairs." "Exactly," Elder Flame said. "And that withdrawal itself is a threat. They are showing disrespect. They are making the Council look weak in front of other species." Elder Whisper, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "I have had a vision," she said softly. "I saw fire. I saw burning worlds of the Council. I saw the destruction of our ships. I saw everything we have built crumble into ash." The other council members stared at her. "You are dramatizing," Elder Stone said. "Humans are not capable of threatening us. They are too young, too weak, too primitive." "Is that so?" Elder Whisper asked. 3 months ago, I would have agreed with you. But now we don't even know what they have been doing. We don't know what they have built. We are blind, and we are arrogant. and that combination will destroy us. Enough, Elder Silver said. We will watch them for another month. If they take any aggressive steps, we will respond accordingly. Until then, we wait. It was the wrong decision. They had already waited too long. In human space, General Wells looked at the countdown clock on the wall. 7 days, 168 hours. Then the galaxy would know what humanity was capable of when it was pushed too far. Sir, an aide said quietly, are you sure about this? Once we start, there will be no turning back. Wells nodded slowly. I am sure, he said. They made their choice when they killed Thomas Chen. They proclaimed that human life is worth less than their rules. Now we will show them what human life is actually worth. Now we will show them what we will go to protect our own. The aide left. Wells remained alone in the command center, staring at screens showing the fleet. Thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands of warriors, all ready, all waiting. This is for you, Thomas, Wells said quietly in the empty room. You saved 47 people. We will ensure your death saves billions. The countdown continued. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. The silence was about to end, and when it did, everything would burn. The countdown reached 0, exactly at midnight Earth time. General Wells stood in the command center. His hand hovered over a single button. Around him, hundreds of officers waited in tense silence. This was the moment everything changed. Wells pressed the button. In 70 star systems, human fleets appeared. They did not appear slowly. They did not announce themselves. They simply materialized out of nowhere. Their new phase drives allowed them to completely bypass normal space. One moment, the space around the Council's military stations was empty. The next instant, it was filled with thousands of human warships. On the Zelnari military station, orbiting their home world, sirens wailed. Admiral Kexrel, a veteran of 300 years of service, looked at her displays in confusion. How many ships? She demanded. 200, said the officer at the sensor station. His voice was trembling. No, wait. 300. The number continues to grow. They are still appearing. Impossible, Kexrel said. Humans don't have that many ships. They barely have a fleet at all. They do now, the officer replied. The human fleet did not attack immediately. Instead, every Council military station, every Council warship, every defensive platform of the Council received the same message at the same moment. It was broadcast in all known languages. It was impossible to ignore. The face on the screen belonged to General Marcus Wells. He looked tired. He looked angry. But mostly, he looked determined. I am General Marcus Wells of the United Earth Defense Forces, he said. 3 months ago, the Council of Elders executed Thomas Chen, an engineer who saved 47 lives. You killed him for breaking your law. You broadcast his execution to teach us a lesson. Wells paused. We learned our lesson, he said quietly. We learned that the galaxy does not value life. We learned that your laws are more important than people. We learned that peace is an option only when you allow it. Therefore, we stopped asking for permission. We stopped trying to fit into your galactic order. We spent 3 months preparing to teach you a lesson of our own making. On screens in 70 star systems, Wells leaned forward. From this moment, all military forces of the Council must lay down their weapons and surrender. All weapons must be turned off. All shields must be lowered. You have 1 hour to comply. If you do not do this, we will destroy every military asset you have. We will not attack civilians. We will not target cities. But your ability to wage war will end today. Admiral Kexrel felt something she hadn't felt in centuries. Fear is madness, she said. Launch all fighters. Charge all weapons. Whatever we can. The light went out across the station. All systems failed simultaneously. Emergency power came on a few seconds later, but it was too late. Main computers were shut down. Weapons were disabled. There were no shields. What happened? Kexrel demanded. Unknown, Admiral, the chief engineer said, working desperately at a manual console. It's as if something got into our systems and just turned everything off. Outside the station, a lone human ship was approaching it. It was small, barely larger than a shuttle, but a new message came from it. That was a demonstration, a calm voice said. Our AI systems are about 100 years ahead of yours. We can take control of your ships, your stations, your weapons at any time. We choose not to do so because we want you to surrender voluntarily. But do not make a mistake. You have already lost. The question now is whether you will lose with honor or with destruction. Admiral Kexrel looked at her officers. They were terrified. She had seen soldiers meet death with courage, but this was different. This was not a battle. This was not a war in its usual sense. This was something new and terrible. "Open a channel," she said quietly, "to all Zelnari forces in this system. This is Admiral Kexrel. Lay down your weapons. Turn off all weapons. Lower all shields. We surrender." Her officers stared at her in shock. "Admiral, we cannot." "We can, and we will," Kexrel said firmly. "Look at the screens, look at what they have. We are outmatched in every respect. If we fight, we will die. And we will die for nothing, because we will lose anyway. I will not sacrifice lives for pride." Throughout the orbital space of the Zelnari home world, dozens of military stations, hundreds of ships began to shut down. The surrender was happening, but not everywhere. On the military world of Kreen, Fortress Gamma, Commander Xiao watched the appearance of the human fleet and laughed. The Kreen were a warrior race. They had fought in every major galactic war for 500 years. They did not surrender. "Humans think they can threaten us," Xiao growled. "Show them what Kreen warriors do with threats. All ships to battle stations. All planetary systems, fire at will." His officers rushed to carry out the order. In seconds, hundreds of Kreen warships launched from the fortress planet. Thousands of ground-based weapons began charging. This was what the Kreen lived for. This was a fight. The human fleet did not even slow down. Kreen ships opened fire first. Massive plasma cannons, each capable of destroying a city, fired in perfect synchronization. The beams crossed space at the speed of light. The firepower was enough to crack a moon. The human ships simply were not there when the beams arrived. They moved, but not like ships usually move. They did not accelerate or turn. They simply existed in one place, and then they existed in another. Phase drives allowed them to dodge attacks by temporarily leaving normal space. The Kreen fired again and again. Every shot missed. Then the humans returned fire. From the lead human ships, beams of impossible light struck. These were not lasers. This was not plasma. This was something new. Quantum disintegrators. A weapon that did not just damage matter, but destroyed the very bonds holding atoms together. Where the beams touched the Kreen ships, they simply disintegrated. No explosions, no fire. Just matter ceasing to be solid and turning into a cloud of individual atoms. In 10 seconds, 100 Kreen warships perished. Commander Xiao watched in horror as his fleet was destroyed. Each ship lived less than a second. Once they became a target, the human weapons were impossibly precise and impossibly lethal. "Retreat," Xiao ordered. "Retreat to the planet's defensive perimeter." But there was nowhere to retreat to. The human fleet was everywhere. They moved faster than the Kreen ships could track. They fired with perfect accuracy. They were ghosts that killed with a touch. Orbital bombardment platforms were next. These were massive structures built for defense against entire fleets. Each carried firepower sufficient to sterilize a continent. The Kreen believed they were invincible. They were wrong. The human ships bypassed the platform shields entirely, passing through them as if they didn't exist. Then, from inside the defensive perimeter, they opened fire. The platforms fell apart just like the ships, turning into atomic clouds in seconds. 5 minutes after the battle began, the entire orbital defense network of Fortress Gamma had disappeared. Xiao looked at his screens in confusion. His fleet was destroyed, his defenses were gone, and the human fleet hadn't even slowed down. They were still coming, still moving toward the planet. A message came in. "Commander," a calm human voice said, "you have one last chance to surrender. We do not want to attack your planet. We do not want to kill your people, but we will destroy every military target you have. Lay down your weapons now, or watch everything you have built turn to dust." Xiao's pride fought with his sense of duty. Pride said to fight to the end. Duty said to save his people from a senseless death. Duty won. "I surrender," Xiao said, tasting poison in his mouth. "All Kreen forces, lay down your weapons." In 70 star systems, similar scenes played out. Some council forces surrendered immediately. Others tried to fight. All of them lost. The humans were relentless. They were everywhere. They moved in ways the council forces had never seen. They fought with weapons that seemed like magic. And most terrifyingly, they fought with surgical precision. On the water world of Deep Hold, the council's main naval base, Elder Deep himself watched the battle from his underwater palace. Human ships appeared in orbit and demanded surrender. The defensive fleet refused. That was a mistake. The human ships deployed what they called high-precision bombardment drones. This was small, intelligent weaponry that could pass through shields and water, penetrating deep into the ocean. Each drone had one goal programmed into it. Each drone was perfectly accurate. Within an hour, all military submarines, all underwater weapon platforms were destroyed. All naval bases on Deephold were gone, but not a single civilian facility was touched. Not one city was harmed. The humans avoided collateral damage with impossible precision. Elder Deep rose to the surface. His massive form broke the waves. Above him, human ships hung in the sky like dark stars. How? He asked the empty air. How did they become so powerful in only 3 months? A human ship descended lower. A voice answered his question. You think 3 months was all we had? We have been preparing for this possibility for decades. We hoped it would never be needed. We hoped the galaxy would be friendly. But we are not stupid. We were preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. And you gave us the worst. Elder Deep felt something he had not felt for millennia. Shame. We will surrender, he said quietly. We know, the human voice replied. We have already hacked your defensive network. We were waiting for you to make the right choice. On Concordia Prime, chaos reigned in the council. Elder Silver stood in the emergency meeting hall, watching the reports pouring in from council space. Human fleets were appearing everywhere. Everywhere, council forces were being destroyed or surrendering. This is impossible, Elder Stone roared. They cannot attack 70 systems simultaneously. They cannot have that many ships. But they do, Elder Flame said. His plasma form flickered with despair. The reports are clear. They have thousands of ships, tens of thousands, maybe more. And all of them are using technology we do not understand. Elder Whisper was barely visible. She was so upset. I told you, she said quietly. I warned you, but you would not listen. What do we do? Elder Deep's voice rang through the communication system. I am surrendering Deephold. I will not watch my people perish in a battle we cannot win. No, Elder Stone said. We cannot surrender. We are the Council. We have ruled for 10,000 years. We cannot let humans dictate terms to us. Elder Silver's colors shifted rapidly, showing her internal conflict. We have no choice, she finally said. Look at the reports. We have lost 70% of our military forces in the first hour. Our ships cannot fight their ships. Our weapons cannot hit them. Our defenses cannot stop them. If we continue to fight, we will lose everything. Then we use the void drives, Elder Stone said. The hall fell silent. Void drives were the Council's primary weapon. Ancient technology more powerful than anything else in the galaxy. A weapon that could destroy stars, wiping out entire solar systems. You cannot be serious, Elder Deep said. Void drives have not been used for 500 years. Forbidden times, Elder Stone said grimly. Desperate measures. Elder Whisper shook her head. If we use the void drives against humans, we will not win. We will only ensure the destruction of both sides. Is that what you want? The end of everything. Better that than submission, Elder Stone said. But Elder Silver had made a decision. No, she said firmly. We will not use the void drives. We will not destroy ourselves out of pride. Humans have defeated us. We must accept it and negotiate for the best terms we can get. They will not negotiate, Elder Flame said. They want revenge. As if summoned by his words, every screen in the hall lit up. General Wells appeared on all of them. Council of Elders, Wells said. Your military forces are defeated. Your fleets are destroyed. Your defensive lines have fallen. But we are not here to conquer you. We are not here to enslave you. We are here to put an end to your rule. Elder Silver stepped forward. General Wells, she said. What do you want? Wells looked at her with hard eyes. I want justice, he said simply. I want a galaxy where no one is executed for saving lives. I want a galaxy where all species are equal, not just the old ones. I want a galaxy where rules make sense and are applied to everyone fairly. He paused. The Council of Elders is dissolved, Wells said. From this moment, you will announce this to the galaxy. You will relinquish all power, and you will help us build something better in its place. And if we refuse? Elder Stone asked. Wells smiled, but there was no warmth in that smile. Then we will make your home worlds look like the systems we have already attacked. Is that what you want? Do you want to watch your people suffer because of your pride? Choose now. The screen went black. The council members sat in silence for a long time. 10,000 years of rule had ended in an hour because of the execution of one man. It seemed impossible. It seemed like a nightmare, but it was true. Finally, Elder Silver spoke. "We surrender," she said quietly. "We will announce the dissolution of the council. We will cooperate with the humans." Elder Stone stood up sharply. "I will not be a part of this," he said. "I will not surrender to children." He walked out of the hall. The others watched him go. "Let him be angry," Elder Deep said. "He will accept reality in the end, or he will become irrelevant." Elder Silver looked at the others. "How did we get to this?" she asked quietly. "How did we turn from wise rulers of the galaxy into the defeated in a single day?" Elder Whisper answered. Her voice sounded detached. "We got to this because we valued our laws more than justice. We got to this because we thought our age made us right. We got to this because we killed a good man to prove a point." She paused. "We got to this because we forgot that strength and truth are not the same thing. And the humans have just reminded us of that fact." An hour passed. The council announced its surrender. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched in shock as rulers of 10,000 years admitted defeat to a species that had been in space for only 50. The burning had begun. The old order was ending, and humanity was just beginning. The surrender was supposed to end the war. General Wells believed that once the council admitted defeat, the galaxy would begin to heal. He was wrong. In the weeks following the council's announcement, the galaxy fractured. Some species welcomed the changes, others feared them, and still others saw opportunities in the chaos. The Trax Empire, a warlike species that had suffered for centuries under the Council's rule, immediately declared independence and began attacking neighboring species. The Mandari Collective, seeing the Council's weakness, began expanding into territories that had been forbidden for millennia. Dozens of minor conflicts broke out across the galaxy. General Wells stood in the command center on Earth, watching the incoming reports. His hair had turned gray in recent weeks. He slept, perhaps, 3 hours a day. "This is not what we wanted," he said to Admiral Chen, who was standing beside him. She was Thomas Chen's cousin and had volunteered for military service the day after the execution. "We broke the old system," Admiral Chen said, "but we did not build a new one fast enough. Nature abhors a vacuum, General. We created a power vacuum." Wells nodded grimly. She was right. The human fleets were stretched thin, trying to prevent wars from starting. They were not conquerors. They were not occupiers. But who? Who was supposed to maintain order while a new system was not yet in place? "Diplomatic mission status?" Wells asked. "Ambassador Santos on Concordia Prime." "Now," the aide replied. "She is meeting with representatives of 200 species. They are trying to draft a new galactic charter. 200 species out of thousands," Wells said. "We need more participation. Many species are afraid to come. They are afraid of what the humans will do," the aide said. "They are afraid of choosing the wrong side." Wells felt frustration building in his chest. Humans had fought this war to make the galaxy more just, more fair, but fear was causing species to withdraw rather than participate. On Concordia Prime, Maria Santos sat in a conference room that had been built for the old council, but was now being used by the provisional government. Around her sat representatives of dozens of species. All were arguing. "Humans have no right to dictate galactic policy," growled a Kreen representative. "You won the war. That does not make you wise." "We are dictating nothing," Maria said patiently. She had been having this same argument for days. "We are trying to build a system where everyone has a voice, including you, including the Kreen, including every species, no matter how young or old they are. But humans have all the military power," said a small crystalline creature. "How can we believe that you will not use this power just as the council did?" Maria sighed. This was the essence of the problem. Humans wanted to break the council's monopoly on power, but in doing so, they created their own monopoly. They did not want this, but intentions did not matter as much as reality. "You cannot trust us," Maria said honestly. "You have no reason to trust us," she said, "based only on faith. Therefore, we will prove our worth with actions. We will help build this new government, and then we will step back. We will reduce our military presence. We will share our technologies with all species equally." "Why would you do that?" asked the Kreen representative suspiciously. "You won. You have the power. Why give it away?" "Because power was never the goal," Maria said. "The goal was justice, and you cannot have justice when one species possesses all the power. My cousin Thomas died because the council had too much power, and they used it poorly. I will not honor his memory by recreating the same system with humans at the top instead of the council." A Zelnari representative, One of the young ones who had argued against the execution spoke up. "I believe her," he said. "Humans could have destroyed us. They could have enslaved us. They could have taken everything. But they did not. They showed amazing restraint for a species seeking revenge." "Restraint is not the same as trust," said the Kreen. "No," the Zelnari agreed. "But it is a start." The discussion continued for hours. Progress was slow, but it was progress. However, not everyone was interested in progress. In a secret facility deep inside a dead moon, Elder Stone met with representatives of several council species. These were the hardliners, those who believed that the surrender had been a mistake. "The council was weak," Elder Stone said. His stone voice creaked. "They surrendered without truly fighting. They gave away our 10,000 years of rule because of one bad day." "What would you have had them do?" asked the Zelnari admiral. The admiral's colors were dark red, expressing anger. "We could not win. The humans were too strong. We did not use our most powerful weapon," Elder Stone said. "We have the void drives. We could have destroyed their home world. We could have made them pay." The room fell silent. Everyone knew about the void drives, ancient technology of a civilization that had perished long, long ago. The council held 3 of them, hidden away as a last defense. "Using the void drives would be genocide," the Kreen said cautiously. "Earth has 10 billion humans. We would kill them all." "They attacked us," Elder Stone said. "They destroyed our fleets. They humiliated us before the entire galaxy. We have the right to defend ourselves. It is not defense if we attack their home world after we have already surrendered," the Zelnari admiral pointed out. "It is revenge, and it will turn every species in the galaxy against us." "Let them turn against us," Elder Stone said. "At least we would have our pride." The Kreen general shook his head. "Pride is useless if you are dead," he said. "And make no mistake, if we use the void drives on Earth, humans will respond with everything they have. They may not be able to stop a void drive in time, but they will ensure that we all perish with them." "Perhaps that is acceptable," Elder Stone said quietly. "Perhaps it is better to die standing than to live on our knees." "You are insane," the Zelnari admiral said, standing up. "I came here thinking we would discuss how to negotiate for better terms. But you want to start a war we cannot win. I want nothing to do with this." The admiral left. Others followed him, but some stayed. Some agreed with Elder Stone. Some believed the council's pride was worth dying for. Over the next weeks, those who remained began to make plans. The first sign that something was wrong was when a human patrol discovered unusual energy signatures near the edge of council space. They investigated and found a small fleet of ships, all powered down, floating in the darkness of space. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the UAS Discovery," the patrol leader said, broadcasting on all frequencies. "Unidentified vessels, identify yourselves and state your purpose." There was no response. "Scan them," Rodriguez ordered. The tactical officer worked at his console for a moment, then looked up with confusion. "Captain, these ships are old, very old. They match the design of council ships from about 500 years ago. But the energy cores are active, and there is something else. There is a massive energy output from the lead ship. It is not like anything in our database." Rodriguez felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "Send a full report to Fleet Command," he said, "and continue scanning. I want to know what that energy signature is." Back on Earth, General Wells received the report and immediately summoned his science team. "What are we looking at?" he asked, showing them the scans. Dr. Lisa Yamamoto, head of the Xenotechnology Division, studied the data for several minutes. Then her face paled. "General," she said quietly, "I think it is a void drive." Wells felt his blood freeze in his veins. "Explain," he said. "The Council had a weapon called void drives," Dr. Yamamoto said. "We found references to them in the databases we captured. They were supposed to be able to destroy stars, force them to collapse, or turn into supernovae. We thought they were myths or that the technology was lost. But if these scans are accurate, one of these weapons is being moved into position." "Position for what?" Wells demanded. Dr. Yamamoto opened a star map. "Based on the trajectory of these ships, they are heading toward the outer edge of this region," she said, pointing a finger. "From there, they will have a direct line to—" "Oh, no." "What?" Wells asked, though he already knew. "They will have a direct line to SOL," Dr. Yamamoto said. "To Earth." Wells immediately activated the emergency command network. "All fleet units. This is General Wells. Extreme threat detected. Unidentified forces are moving a potentially planet-killing weapon toward Earth. I need all available ships for interception. Code Alpha Black 7. Move now. Throughout human space, ships that were on patrol or standing guard immediately began accelerating to the coordinates Wells had transmitted. Within a few hours, a fleet of more than 1,000 human ships was converging on the area, but the ships carrying the Void Drive had a head start. On the lead ship, Elder Stone stood on the command deck. Around him, a crew of believers worked at ancient consoles, preparing the Void Drive for activation. "How much time until we are in range of SOL?" Elder Stone asked. 6 hours at current speed, the navigation officer replied. "And how long to charge the Void Drive once we are in position?" "About 2 hours," said the weapons officer. "The technology is old. It takes time to build up the necessary power." Elder Stone did the calculation in his head. Humans would discover them soon. If they hadn't already, the human fleet would come. But if they could get into position and start charging the weapon, humans would face an impossible choice. They could attack the ships carrying the Void Drive, but if they damaged it, the weapon could explode uncontrollably. It could destroy the ships around it, it might even cause a chain reaction, or they could try to negotiate. But Elder Stone did not intend to negotiate. He had made his choice. The honor of the Council would be preserved, even if it meant mutual destruction. Captain Rodriguez and his patrol ships were the first to intercept the convoy. They matched speed with the Council ships, keeping a safe distance. "This is Captain Rodriguez," he broadcast again. "You are approaching human space without authorization. You are carrying what we believe is a weapon of mass destruction. Shut down your engines and prepare to be boarded." This time there was an answer. Elder Stone's face appeared on Rodriguez's screen. "Captain Rodriguez," Elder Stone said, "I am Elder Stone of the Council of Elders. We do not recognize human authority. We do not recognize your claims to this space. And we will not surrender." "Elder Stone," Rodriguez said cautiously, "whatever you are planning, it is not too late to stop. We can discuss this." "There is nothing to discuss," Elder Stone interrupted. "You humans have destroyed everything the Council built. You humiliated us. You ended 10,000 years of order. Now you are finding out that such actions have consequences." "You are heading to Earth," Rodriguez said. "There are 10 billion people there, civilian families, children. You cannot." "I can and I will," Elder Stone said. "Your General Wells should have thought about the consequences before he attacked us. Now you will all pay the price for his arrogance." The transmission ended. Rodriguez immediately sent a priority message to Fleet Command. "General Wells, this is Captain Rodriguez. I have confirmation. They are targeting Earth with a Void Drive. The one in command is Elder Stone. He seems completely committed to this course of action. I recommend an immediate response at Earth." Wells received the message. He had hoped it was a bluff. He had hoped they were just trying to intimidate humanity to regain some of the Council's power. But Elder Stone's face showed no doubt, no hesitation. The ancient being was ready to die to prove his point. Wells made a decision he had hoped never to make. "Activate all defensive systems around SOL," he ordered. "Every ship, every station, every platform. We are going to throw everything we have at stopping this weapon." "Sir," Admiral Chen said quietly, "if we attack them and damage the Void Drive, it might explode anyway." "I know," Wells said, "but if we do nothing, it will definitely work. At least this way we have a chance." He took a breath and prepared the countermeasure, he said quietly. Admiral Chen looked at him in shock. "Sir, we have never tested the countermeasure on this scale. We don't even know if it will work." "Then we are about to find out," Wells said grimly. The countermeasure was humanity's answer to the Void Drive. In the months since learning about the ancient weapon, human scientists had worked on a way to stop it. They had a theory, they had run simulations, but they had never tested it in real conditions. They were about to test it with the survival of Earth hanging in the balance. The human fleet arrived at the convoy's position. More than 2,000 ships surrounded the small group of ancient ships of Elder Stone. The difference in firepower was overwhelming. Humans could have destroyed the convoy in seconds, but they could not risk it. "Elder Stone," General Wells's voice sounded on all frequencies. "This is your last chance. Surrender the Void Drive. Let us disarm it safely. No one has to die today." Elder Stone's response was simple. "Humans do not dictate terms to the Council. We are activating the weapon. You have 2 hours to evacuate Earth. If you can, spend your final moments knowing that you brought this on yourselves." The Council ships began to glow with strange energy. The Void Drive was charging. Wells watched as the readings jumped. "How much time do we have?" he asked his science team. "If he is telling the truth about 2 hours, we have that long," Dr. Yamamoto said. "But General, we need to move now. We need to put the countermeasure into position. Do it, Wells ordered. From the human fleet, one small ship separated and began moving toward the convoy. It was barely the size of a shuttle, but carried the technology that represented humanity's best hope for survival. Inside the ship, an AI named Hope was piloting toward the Void Drive. Hope was created specifically for this mission. She was not alive in the traditional sense, but she had one goal: stop the Void Drive at any cost. This is Hope, the AI transmitted back to the fleet. Approaching target, initiating countermeasure in 3, 2, 1. The small ship released an energy pulse. It was based on the same principles as the Void Drive itself, but inverted. Instead of destroying a star, it was designed to stabilize it, strengthen the bonds that held matter together instead of tearing them apart. No one knew if it would work. The pulse hit the Void Drive, and for a moment nothing happened. Then the readings from Elderstone's ship began to fluctuate wildly. On the Council ship, alarms blared. The weapons officer looked at his displays in shock. Elderstone. Something is interfering with the Void Drive. Power levels are becoming unstable. Compensate, Elderstone ordered. I cannot. Whatever the humans are doing, it is counteracting our weapon. The Void Drive is losing coherence. Elderstone felt rage and despair in equal measure. Even their last weapon. Humans have found a way to stop it. Increase power, he ordered. Pour everything we have into the weapon. If it destroys us along with them, so be it. The weapons officer obeyed. The Void Drive's power jumped to the heavens. The ship began to shake from the energy flowing through it. In her small ship, Hope detected the change. The countermeasure is working, but they are overloading the weapon, she reported. If they continue, the Void Drive will explode. It will not be strong enough to destroy SOL, but it will destroy everything within a 1-0 light, minute radius of this position. This included Hope's ship. This included most of the human fleet. This included Elderstone and everyone with him. Wells made his final decision. Hope, he said quietly, carry out the mission. Hope understood and adjusted her countermeasure pulse, increasing it to the maximum. She poured every bit of energy her small ship had into stopping the Void Drive. On the Council ship, the Void Drive's containment field began to collapse. The weapon was tearing itself apart from the inside, unable to handle the conflicting energies. It is going to explode, the weapons officer shouted. Elderstone watched the readings and felt something almost like peace. He had lost, but at least he had tried. At least the Council's final act would be remembered. The Void Drive detonated, but not in the way Elderstone expected. Hope's countermeasure worked. The Void Drive's energy, instead of expanding outward in a wave of destruction, collapsed inward. It imploded, creating a brief flash of light and a pulse of radiation. Then it vanished. Elderstone and his crew died instantly, vaporized by the energies they had tried to control. But the human fleet survived. SOL survived. Earth survived. In the command center on Earth, General Wells watched as the readings stabilized. The threat was ended. The Void Drive is destroyed, Dr. Yamamoto reported quietly. The countermeasure worked. Hope stopped it. What about Hope? Wells asked. There was silence. Hope was at the epicenter of the implosion, Admiral Chen said softly. She did not survive. Wells closed his eyes for a moment. Another sacrifice. Another life given to protect Earth. Ensure Hope is remembered, he said. She saved 10 billion lives today. Across the galaxy, news of the attempted attack spread quickly. The final desperate act of the Council, their last attempt to harm humanity and humanity's response. They stopped it not with overwhelming force, not with revenge, but with science and sacrifice. Species that were unsure about trusting humans began to reconsider their position and perished to save Earth. Yes, but humans could have destroyed the convoy the moment the threat was discovered. They could have killed everyone on board without risk. Instead, they tried to save everyone, even their enemies. They could not save Elderstone and his crew, but they tried. That meant something. On Concordia Prime, Maria Santos received news of the attack and its resolution. She stood before the Assembly of Species and spoke. Today, the last of the old council tried to destroy my home world, she said. They failed. But more importantly, we tried to save them. We tried to find a path where no one had to die. We were not entirely successful, but we tried. She looked around at the gathered representatives. This is what a new galactic government should be, Maria said. A place where we try to save everyone, even our enemies. A place where justice does not mean revenge. a place where different species can disagree without resorting to genocide. Can such a place exist? The Kreen representative asked quietly. It must, Maria said simply, because the alternative is unthinkable. The assembly was silent for a long time. Then, one by one, the representatives began to nod. A new order was beginning, built not on fear or power, but on the hope that something better was possible. It would not be easy, but nothing worth having was ever easy. 6 months had passed since the death of Elder Stone. 6 months since the last desperate attack of the old council. 6 months of building something new. The ruins of Concordia Prime were rebuilt. The station was no longer a symbol of council power. Now it was becoming something else, something that had never existed before in the galaxy. A true democracy. Maria Santos stood in what was once the council hall. The high chairs, where the 5 ancients looked down on everyone else, were gone. In their place was a circular arrangement of seats, everything on one level. No one sat above others. No species had power over others. Today was the first session of the Galactic Assembly. Representatives of more than 800 species filled the hall. Some were from powerful ancient civilizations, others from young species like humanity. Many were from species that had never had any voice in galactic affairs before. They were all equal here. Maria called the session to order. As the human who organized the assembly, she was chosen as the first speaker, but she made it clear that this was a temporary position. In a year, there would be elections. Anyone from any species could run. "Welcome," Maria said. Her voice was amplified through the hall. "Welcome to the first true Galactic Assembly. For 10,000 years, this galaxy was ruled by 5 species. Today we start something new. Today we build a government where every voice matters." Applause rang out, though it sounded strange with the participation of so many different species. Some clapped, some created sounds with their vocal organs, some created light patterns, some vibrated, but all expressed approval. "First order of business," Maria continued, "is the approval of the new Galactic Charter. This document had been drafted over the last 6 months by representatives of 200 species. It established the basic rights and responsibilities of all galactic civilizations. She projected the charter onto screens throughout the hall. The first article appeared in 1,000 different languages simultaneously. Article 1, Maria read. All sentient beings have the right to life, liberty, and self-determination. No species may enslave, commit genocide against, or otherwise destroy another species. Violations of this article will lead to intervention by the full assembly. Article 2. All species have the right to representation in the Galactic Assembly. No species may be excluded based on age, level of technology, or location. Article 3. No single species or group of species may execute a citizen of another species without the consent of the government of that citizen's home world. Everything in criminal justice must respect the sovereignty of individual worlds. This was the Chen Protocol, named after Thomas Chen, the rule that stated no one would ever again be executed for breaking a law they did not know existed or for making an impossible choice in an impossible situation. Maria continued to read the charter. It covered trade, war, exploration, resource rights, cultural preservation, and dozens of other topics. It was not perfect. There were compromises that made no one completely happy, but it was fair. When she finished, Maria looked at the assembly. This charter represents the best ideas of hundreds of species, she said. It is designed to prevent the abuses of the past while allowing the development and growth of all civilizations. The question now is simple. Do you approve it? Voting took 3 hours. Each species had 1 vote, regardless of size or power. The vote of Earth counted the same as the vote of the Zelnari. The Kreen had the same vote as a species that had discovered fire 100 years ago. When the count was finished, the results appeared on the screens. 743 species voted in favor, 57 voted against, 20 abstained. The Galactic Charter was approved. The hall erupted in celebration. Different species had different ways of expressing joy, and the combination was almost overwhelming. But through it all, Maria felt tears on her face. They had done it. They had built something better. After the session ended, Maria walked through the halls of Concordia Prime. She needed time to think, time to realize what had just happened. She ended up on the observation deck, looking at the stars. A figure joined her. It was Elder Whisper, the council member who had warned of the human attack. "Congratulations," Elder Whisper said quietly. "You have achieved something remarkable." "We achieved it," Maria corrected. It was not just humans, it was everyone working together. Elder Whisper flickered. I wanted to apologize, Elder Whisper said, for Thomas Chen, for what the council did. It was wrong. I knew it was wrong then, but I did not fight hard enough to stop it. Maria was silent for a moment. I appreciate the apology, she said. But it is not to me you should apologize. It is Thomas's wife, his daughters, the 47 crew members he saved. They are the ones who lost someone. I tried, Elder Whisper said. I sent a message to his family. They did not respond. Give-vous, they are still grieving. But I think The two stood in silence for some time, looking at the stars. What happens now? Elder Whisper asked. Now the hard part, Maria said. We have a charter, we have an assembly, but we need to make it work. We need to show that species can cooperate instead of dominate, that justice can exist without tyranny. Think it will work? Elder Whisper asked. Maria smiled slightly. It must, she said, because the alternative is a return to the old way, and none of us want that. On Earth, General Marcus Wells stood before a memorial. It was built in Washington, the capital of the United Earth Government. The memorial was a simple black wall with engraved names, thousands of names, every person who died in the war with the Council. At the top of the list was one name, in larger letters than the others, Thomas Chen. Below his name was an inscription. He saved 47. They saved billions. Wells placed his hand on the wall. He was retiring today. The war was finished. Peace was holding. His work was done. I hope we did the right thing by you, Wells said quietly to the name on the wall. I hope this is what you would have wanted. A voice sounded behind him. He turned. Lisa Chen, Thomas's widow, stood there. She looked older than she had 6 months ago. Grief had left a mark on her face, but her eyes were clear. Mrs. Chen, Wells said, I did not expect to see you here. I come here sometimes, Lisa said, to talk to him, to tell him about the girls, to let him know what his death achieved. She approached the wall and placed her hand on Thomas's name. I was angry at you for a long time, Lisa said. Angry that you used his death as a justification for war. Angry that you turned him into a symbol. I understand, Wells said. I would be angry too. But I am no longer angry, Lisa continued, because I realized something. Thomas died trying to save people, and you used his death to save even more people. Not just people, everyone. This is what he would have wanted. Wells felt something loosen in his chest. He had carried guilt for 6 months, wondering if he had done the right thing, wondering if using Thomas Chen's execution as a battle cry was honest or exploitative. Thank you, he said quietly. Lisa looked at him. What will you do now? She asked. Now that you are retiring. Wells smiled slightly. I am going to teach, he said, at the new Galactic Defense Academy. We are training a joint military force, ships and soldiers from hundreds of different species, all working together to protect the galaxy. That sounds like Thomas, Lisa said. He always believed in cooperation, in different people working together for a common goal. And you? Wells asked. What will you do? Lisa was silent for a moment. I am going back to school, she said, to study xenodiplomacy. The girls are older now. They don't need as much attention, and I think I can help. I can ensure that what happened to Thomas never happens to anyone again. Wells nodded. It was fitting. The widow of the man whose death started a revolution would help build the peace. They stood together for a while, two people who had changed because of the same tragedy. Looking at the name on the wall across the galaxy, the changes continued. The Zelnari homeworld was being transformed. Old temples and palaces that symbolized council power were being turned into museums and schools. The younger Zelnari generation embraced the new order. They saw how the old ways had led to catastrophe. Elder Silver herself had retired. She spent her days teaching history at a university, warning young Zelnari about the dangers of pride and inflexibility. On the Kreen homeworld, something even more remarkable was happening. The warrior culture that had defined the Kreen for millennia was changing. They still valued strength and courage, but now they directed it differently. Commander Xiao, who had surrendered Fortress Gamma, became a leading advocate for the new Galactic Defense Forces. He argued that true warriors protect the weak, not just fight the strong. His words were controversial among traditional Kreen, but the young were listening. The water species of Deephold were prospering. Elder Deep used his influence to push environmental protection laws in the new Galactic Charter. Now, dozens of species work together to clean up polluted worlds and restore damaged ecosystems. Even the Trax Empire, which had tried to use the chaos after the Council's fall, was brought into line not by military force, but by economic pressure and diplomatic isolation. Other species learned that cooperation was more powerful than conquest. Humanity's role in all this was carefully balanced. General Wells kept his promise. Human military forces were reduced, human technologies were shared. Humans did not try to replace the Council as galactic rulers, but they did not fully withdraw either. They kept enough force to protect themselves and help ensure the Galactic Assembly's decisions were carried out. They were a stabilizing force, not a dominant one. A year after the first session of the Galactic Assembly, elections were held for the position of Assembly Speaker. Now it was time for someone else to lead. There were 12 candidates from 8 different species in the election. The campaign was sometimes contentious. Species had different ideas about how the assembly should be run, but disagreements were resolved by debate and voting, not weapons. The winner was a Zelnari diplomat named Vina. She was young by her species standards, only 200 years old. But she had a vision for the galaxy that appealed to many species. "We must remember," Vina said in her inaugural speech, "that this assembly exists because we failed, because the old council valued law above justice, because we forgot that the purpose of government is to serve the people, not to rule them. We must never forget this lesson." She paused, and her colors shifted to a respectful silver. "We must never forget Thomas Chen," Vina said, "the human who died because he chose to save lives. His death was unjust, but his legacy is the assembly. His legacy is a galaxy where such an injustice can never happen again." The hall was silent for a moment. Then, from the human delegation, someone began to clap. Others joined. Soon, the entire assembly was expressing respect in their different ways. In the house in California, Lisa Chen watched the ceremony with her daughters. Jennifer was 16 now, preparing to apply to the Galactic Defense Academy. Sarah was 13, already showing an interest in xenobiology. "Dad would have liked this," Jennifer said quietly. "He would have," Lisa agreed. "He always believed the galaxy could be better. He just never lived to see it." "But we saw it," Sarah said. "We saw it because of him." Lisa hugged her daughters. They sat together, watching as the galaxy her husband had died to change continued to grow and evolve. On Concordia Prime, in the small garden that had been created on the rebuilt station, there was a memorial. It was simple, a stone with engraved names. Thomas Chen's name was at the top. Below were the names of everyone who died in the war that followed. Humans, yes, but also Zelnari, Kreen, Deep-Hold citizens, and others. At the bottom of the memorial was an inscription in 100 languages. "They died so the galaxy could be reborn. Let us honor them by being worthy of their sacrifice." The ceremony went on for hours. Different species shared their memories of the revolution. They talked about what had changed, what had improved, what still needed work. And in the end, they all stood together in a moment of silence, honoring the man who died to save his crew, honoring all those who died in the war that followed, honoring the hope that their deaths had meaning. In California, Lisa Chen stood in her backyard with her daughters. They watched the ceremony on a screen. When the moment of silence came, they bowed their heads. "I am proud of him," Lisa said quietly. Not because he became a symbol, not because his death changed the galaxy, but because he was true to himself. He saw people dying, and he saved them. That is who he was. That is who he always was. "We are proud too," Jennifer said. She was at the Defense Academy now, training to serve on one of the new joint species ships. "I am writing a paper about him," Sarah added, "for my xenobiology class, about how his choice showed the fundamental similarity between all species. We all value life. We all protect our own. It is universal." Lisa smiled through tears. "He would have liked that," she said. "He always said that, despite our differences, we were all more alike than we were different. That is why he believed that we all could get along if we just tried." The ceremony ended. The screen went blank, but the 3 Chen women stood together for a while longer, thinking of the husband and father they had lost. He was gone 10 years ago, but his influence would last forever. The galaxy burned, the old order fell, and from the ash something new grew, something better, something worth the terrible price that had been paid. As the stars turned and civilizations rose and fell, the Galactic Assembly continued its work, building, growing, learning, making mistakes and correcting them, facing new challenges and finding new solutions. And through it all, they remembered. They remembered Thomas Chen. They remembered the day the Council executed a human. They remembered the day the galaxy began to burn. And they remembered the lesson learned in fire, blood, and sacrifice. That justice is not something given by the strong to the weak. It is something built by everyone for everyone. It requires constant work, constant vigilance, constant readiness to do what is right, even when it is difficult. Thomas Chen understood this. He lived by it. He died for it. And now 10 billion beings across 1,000 worlds were trying to live by his example. The galaxy was not perfect. It never would be perfect, but it was trying. And in the end, that was the best anyone could do. To try, to build, to hope, and never forget the price that freedom and justice demands. The memorial garden on Concordia Prime stood quiet under alien stars. The names carved in stone remained constant, a testament to sacrifice, a reminder of the price, a promise of the future. And in the garden, new flowers bloomed, planted by members of a dozen different species. Each flower different, each beautiful in its own way, but all growing together, nourished by the same soil, reaching for the same stars. It was a small thing, a symbol, but symbols mattered. They were proof that even in darkness, even in tragedy, even in the ash of everything that had been burned, life could return, beauty could grow, hope could survive. The galaxy had learned its lesson the hard way, the painful way, but it had learned. And Thomas Chen, who never sought to be a hero, who just wanted to save his crew and return home to his family, became the teacher of that lesson not through his life, but through his death. Not through his words, but through his actions. Not through seeking glory, but through doing what was right. The galaxy would remember, and remembering, it would try to be better. That was all anyone could ask. That was all.